Hi, everybody. Welcome back. In this video, we talk about the central metaphor of the onion. In order to get something out of this, you have to really test your own minds. So I want you to pause your videos here and see if you can reconstruct what the fable is and what you think the significance of the fable is. What role does the onion play, metaphorically speaking, throughout the rest of the novel? So pause your videos here and try to use your understanding to figure it out. Okay, that was your last chance to pause your videos. Let me say something about the fable. It's about a woman who was wicked and only did one nice thing in her life. She gave an onion away. So giving away the onion becomes this metaphor for salvation or for our possibilities of salvation. Because God says, all right, if that's the one thing she did, let's see if it's good enough. So the angel, they have to hold down the onion and see if that's enough to pull her out of the torments of hell. All the other damned spirits start grabbing at her feet. And instead of doing the Dostoevskian thing, instead of treating them like humans, like spirits, acknowledging them, admitting your own guilt and asking for forgiveness from them, she just selfishly starts kicking them all off. She pursues the path of isolation. And of course, then the onion breaks and she falls back into hell. So it's about this. The onion is like the olive branch. It is this thing that is extended to us. And can we take it? Can we handle it in the right way? Or are we going to pursue the path of connectedness, or are we going to pursue the path of isolation? That's the existential question that's going to be posed to all of us in Dostoevsky's worldview. Now, what does this have to, so Grushenka is the one who tells this story, and this tells so much about her character, what is essential to understanding her character and what's redeemable about her. Because she says, I know this by heart because I am that wicked woman. This solidifies the thoughts about her being a Dmitri-like character, her being a person who feels the pull of both sides. They feel the tension, the conflict of what it is to be a human so acutely and so redeemably, therefore, but they need to figure out how to come to a mediation or reconciliation from those parts of themselves that are in tension. So Alyosha even says this, like when he's having this bonding moment with Grushenka, he says she is higher in love than we are. And he's really hitting home the idea that she does have both sides. She has this nobility, this spirit to her. She's not just a base, character representing the bodily, passionate side of the duality, but she has the spiritual side as much or more than anybody else. And can she forgive or not? That is the central question that he's raising. And he notices as well, I mean, this is also this very deep point, this soul is not yet reconciled. I mean, this is precisely the kind of explicit statement of the existential situation that I've been hitting home about all along, that we have these two halves of ourselves that have to get reconciled in order for us to be authentic, to find meaning in our lives, in Dostoevsky's way of thinking. Now, I've talked before about how this moment with Alyosha leads to Grushenka's salvation. What I want to do now is tie this in with Dmitri, because it's really in the connection with Dmitri that we see things fully come together for both of their characters. This is the big climactic event for their relationship that we've been waiting on. I said previously, when we start part 3 of the novel, all the action starts happening. And the first book of that is devoted to Alyosha, which we've just been talking about. And the next book, we actually transitioned to the next book, which is not included in your readings because I've tried to keep it manageable. But the very next book is about Dmitri in the title of it. And so spiritually speaking, we see how Dmitri gets saved after we just saw the existential journey for Alyosha. So there's constant talk about the tension and the angst and despair he's in. His soul is constantly troubled. This word comes up dozens of times. And he is rushing out. Remember what's happening in the plot. Grushenka is going to try to find her Polish officer to see if this is the man that she is meant to be with. Is that the human with whom she can find happiness in her life and come to the kind of long-lasting community that Dostoevsky praises? Well, we don't know yet. She doesn't know yet. And Dmitri thinks that is what she's destined to, because he doesn't know what the Polish officer is really like yet. And so he's saying, step aside, Mitya, make way. What am I now? He's expressing, see, he has lost his identity. He is resigned to the fact that Grushenka is going to go off with the Polish officer. And that is like death to him. This is almost like a kind of night of resignation like moment. And he talks thoroughly about suicide in these passages. He's also, so notice he's given up on this central aspect of his character. Remember, all along, he says, I can't remember ever not being in debt to somebody. And his indebtedness is, of course, one of the central metaphors for his character and his spiritual state of needing salvation. And he says, it's now impossible for me to square my accounts with the past. So here's another way in which that metaphor comes out. And in case you didn't realize we're talking about his spirit, he says even, this pierces my soul with despair. So he's giving an existential gloss on that very concept. I've given some other, important quotes, like he's talking about his relationship with God, like, oh, I love the Lord. I know I'm loathsome, but I still love the Lord. This is him experiencing both sides of the duality, recognizing his loathsome nature. Oh, this is misspelled. Don't worry about that. And remember how much this is like Grushenka and her own relationship, her own view of herself. He can't give up on the importance of her for his identity, but at the same time, he recognizes the impossibility of it. So, for I love the queen of my soul. The queen, this sounds, deeply identity defining. He says, I love her and I cannot love her. Here, this is paradoxical, or this can only end in his destruction if he pursues this path. One more bit. I've talked throughout how Dmitri talks about his insect self, the earthly side of himself. And here we even see another version of that. What is more earthly than a worm? Something so low to the ground that just crawls around. So here it's not the insects, but we see another great metaphor for it. So this is the deeply troubled state in which Dmitri flies to find Grushenka and the Polish officer to, in a sense, finish his fate. And what happens is something actually quite unexpected, because the Polish officer is actually not the man Grushenka should be with. If he were a different person, then maybe Grushenka shouldn't join with Dmitri. But he is not such a man. He's a jerk. He's full of himself. He has this kind of pride, just like Katya, but he's actually sort of crawling back to Grushenka because he's heard she has money and he's now destitute, although he won't admit it to anybody. He also completely lacks honor. And remember, this deep sense of honor is absolutely essential to Dmitri's character. But the Polish officer is actually a card shark. He's cheating at cards. And sort of that complete lack of honor makes him diametrically opposed to Dmitri. And we can understand why Grushenka could never end up with such a man. Of course, before her experience with Alyosha, maybe she would have made a misjudgment. See, that's the interesting way in which her character grows as well, just like Alyosha's character has to grow, and Dmitri's character has to grow in order for him to be saved. But because she has grown, this way in which she bonded with Alyosha, she has deeper insight now. She actually sees the Polish officer in a totally different way because she has a kind of peace with her own soul now. She is starting to get mediation or reconciliation between these competing parts through that first experience and bonding with Alyosha. And this allows her to have deeper insight into the baseness of the Polish officer and deeper insight into Dmitri. And this is why they actually have a satisfying relationship, because they then can come and see each other in a new way, precisely because of her experience with Alyosha previously. The transmission of that salvation from Markel to Zosima to Alyosha to Grushenka is what makes, at an existential level, this moment with Dmitri possible and satisfying in Dostoevsky's worldview. So she says, now when she sees Dmitri, she's seen through the Polish officer. She sees he's not what she thought he was, but she sees Dmitri is who she thought, or what she needs. This is the one for you. That's, remember, in Dostoevsky's universe, you have to trust your heart. When your heart is telling you things, you better listen. That is your chance for salvation. And so what does she do? Well, remember what Alyosha said that Grushenka needs to do if this is ultimately going to work. She needs to ask for forgiveness. So of course, Dostoevsky's setting himself up, so it's easy for him to say the right thing. Of course, the character of Grushenka, she is the one who's finding redemption. She connects with Dmitri in this open way in which they have full acknowledgement of each other's faults and flaws, while also their redeemability. And this is the kind of bond for Dostoevsky in which salvation consists. This is his existentialized conception of authentic living. So she asks for forgiveness from him. He, of course, has been asking for forgiveness from her throughout the entire novel. He's been trying to get forgiveness for his spiritual debts since he can remember. So she doesn't deny, she's not pursuing the path of purity and pride like Katya. That's why Dmitri, if he is going to get saved, it has got to be from her. It could never possibly be from Katya once you start to understand who these characters really are. And why can she now help Dmitri get saved? Because she has gotten the onion and she can then hold it out to him. She's not going to be the selfish one kicking down those around her. She is going to be the one who passes the onion on and continues this chain of salvation. She's doing the right thing if you want to get saved for Dostoevsky. And notice how clear-headed it is. It's so essential that this acknowledgement is genuine. See, the reason Dmitri could never be saved by Katya, and he knows that's why he keeps running away from her, is because she has this fictitious conception of him, how he is actually perfect and pure. But we know that's not what people are like for Dostoevsky. So Grushenka says, I know you're a beast, but you're still noble. See, these are the two sides that I've been saying that humans are made up of. And in order to have the right relationships, the redeeming relationships for Dostoevsky, you need to understand and acknowledge both sides of people, not just pursue the path of purity and repression of one of the two sides. So this is the next link in the chain in my interpretation here. So we've gone from Markov, Zosima, Alexei, Grushenka, and now Dmitri too is getting on the train and getting saved. Now, like I've been saying, as soon as people get saved, then they can see the world in a new way. And it is so central. You see, I've been saying all this stuff about miracles in Dostoevsky, and since I'm just speaking to this computer, I can't really tell if anybody's believing me or not. That Dostoevsky is really telling us something about miracles and the relationship between the natural and the supernatural. Now I feel I'm trying to convince you this is real. I'm not just making all this up. The characters never get miracles and then come to faith. What consistently happens is that people come to the right relationships, human relationships with each other, and then to hammer the point home, Dostoevsky tells us a miracle has happened, but it's a completely naturalistic miracle. It's events that you would have seen nonetheless, but you would not have had the eyes to see their miraculousness of them. It's like the spiritual dimension to reality is always there. It's like we just have to we have to gain the ability to see it. And the characters say this explicitly. This happened with Alexei, it happened with Grushenka, it happened in the case of Zosima. Dmitri says, what he's realizing here is that he didn't kill Grigory. And he says, wait, you mean he's alive? Of course, remember, Grigory is like Dmitri's real father. So there's actually a whole different depth to the meaning here that haven't even gotten into that much, because some of these events are treated in the movie thoroughly. But when he realizes, he thinks he has killed Grigory, and in a sense, he thinks he has done parricide, the central theme, not because he's killed Fyodor, but because he thinks he's killed Grigory. And so he learns Grigory is alive. This is miraculous. It's like the man has risen from the dead. Now, there's a perfectly natural explanation for this, which is, Dmitri smashed him in the head, and he was, a head wound is going to create all sorts of blood, but the guy just happened not to die. But in this worldview where Dmitri is saved and can see it for what it is, this is a miracle. He is not damned for this unforgivable act of parricide. And he finally accepts his redeemability, and he can recognize it for the miracle that it is. It's so key that this comes about precisely right after he gets saved. And and just so you see how carefully tied this is with this talk of him getting saved, of course, what is salvation in the Christian worldview and in the Christian set of symbols? This is being born again. This is rising to heaven. This is, you know, resurrection. First the resurrection of Jesus, and then for the saving of all humanity after we are dead. Well, Dostoevsky precisely cashes this out in terms of resurrection. It's so interesting. So after, see, Dmitri knows he has been accused of his father. You know, I wish you would go and read these passages. He knows he's been accused of his father's death. He actually, you know, is realistic and understands he's probably going to get condemned to murder, sent to Siberia, you know, convicted of murder and sent to Siberia. But he's not bothered by it because he, in a sense, has miraculously been saved from parricide. You know, it's like an intervention of God that has made it so he is not committed parricide. And he says, "Oh, I am resurrected. I have been born again." And it's through this relationship with Grushenka. I have taken her whole soul into my soul. I've become a man. I mean, this is as deep a bond as you can get in Dostoevsky's worldview. Their souls have completely bonded. This has made it so his fate is, he is out of existential despair. That's why even being sent to Siberia cannot crush him anymore, because he has healed his soul. And that is, he is born with a new soul. Resurrection has been achieved. So now we finally get the chain of events which fully explains how Grushenka and Dmitri get saved. Okay, thanks.